Juvenile delinquency, the 50s term for bad kids. It scared parents and preachers, psychologists and politicians. Now, it may be hard to believe, but many loudly condemned the influence of comic books. One writer called comics the marijuana of the nursery, the curse of kids. Senator Estes Kefauver chaired congressional hearings looking into these dangerous animations. But through crafty maneuvering, one comic book, Mad, avoided this version of censorship and even thrived because of it. Mad was a brainchild of EC Comics, a company run by Bill Gaines, who had inherited the business from his father in 1947. EC Comics was profitable and, true to the times, not at all controversial.
Everything that you saw in the media was very clean. TV was very clean. Couples slept in separate beds.
Bill Gaines wanted to go against the grain, create some attitude. So he set about rebuilding his comic book line, first by churning out more provocative comics like science fiction and horror. Then in 1952, Gaines and his young staff came up with the idea to spoof the very genre they produced. They named the new publication Mad. In October, the first issue of Mad, the comic book, appeared. Sales started out slow, but by issue number 4, they hit pay dirt with a spoof entitled Super Duper Man. Success was at hand, until the censors came knocking. Frederick Wortham, the head of mental hygiene at New York's Bellevue Hospital, was so sure comics were dangerous, he wrote a book, Seduction of the Innocent, damning comic books as a bad influence in every single delinquent or disturbed child we studied. Bill Gaines was incredulous.
He had made a famous speech and said, "Do we think that the youth of America," I'm paraphrasing of course, "is so stupid that they just see somebody using an axe on someone else, now they're going to run out, get an axe, and then do that."
In 1954, Senator Estes Kefauver chaired the hearing before the subcommittee to investigate juvenile delinquency. It was comic melodrama. The first 12 issues of Mad and many EC horror comics were entered into evidence. Gaines volunteered to testify. He was quickly grilled about showing a woman's severed head on the cover of one of EC Comics' crime suspense stories number 22. The senators questioned its tastefulness.
And Gaines said, "Well, you know, it's really in very good taste for the cover of a horror comic. It could be worse if you showed the bloody stump, if you showed, blood on the floor."
Gaines was tongue-in-cheek, but his answer backfired, and the axe soon fell on the neck of comic book publication. The Senate report condemned the, quote, concentrated diet of crime, horror, and violence found in comic books. But before Congress could step in to censor comics, the leading publishers offered to self-regulate. They formed the Code of the Comics Magazine Association and established strict guidelines.
You couldn't show anybody shooting a gun. You couldn't show anybody getting killed. Love comics, you couldn't show kissing.
Comics that followed the rules would get a seal of approval. No seal, and distributors wouldn't put them on the stands. As a result, all of Bill Gaines' old horror and crime comics withered. Only Mad managed to eke out a profit. Barely. So, Gaines made a revolutionary and risky decision. Comic books were being censored, but magazines weren't. The July 1955 issue of Mad hit the newsstands with a different look. Due to printing concerns, the first issue, printed on a higher grade of paper, was in black and white, 64 pages, and no ads. And this first magazine featured an adopted son that resonated with American youth, a wiseacre, gap-toothed boy who would be named Alfred E. Neuman.
I think that Alfred E. Neuman gave Mad an identity. He was a great cover boy because he was always stupider than you were, and he's sort of every person's little brother.
Gaines and Alfred said, "What, me worry?" and touched a rebellious nerve in the youth of Father Knows Best America. 45 years later, Alfred E. Neuman is still grinning each month from the pages of Mad magazine. Each election year, the magazine sponsored Alfred E. in a run for the presidency, but that has stopped.
We stopped running Alfred in the last few elections because when we got to see who the candidates were, we thought he now has a chance of winning. The joke is over, you know.
11 of the first 12 issues of Mad Comics used as evidence in the 1954 congressional hearings on juvenile delinquency are held in the National Archives in Washington, D.C.